Hometown Histories, the oral history project of the Ocean Township Museum, where we bring you the stories that have shaped people's lives and events that recall our collective past. Please contact the museum and tell us your story.
Welcome to another Hometown History chapter from the Ocean Township Historical Museum. My name is Paul Edelson, and today I'm here with John Huss, a longtime community leader in Ocean Township. Welcome, John.
Paul, nice to see you again.
Well, I know you've had a great life here in Ocean Township, but I know you started out in Lakewood. So give us an idea about your early childhood.
Well, I was raised in Lakewood in my first 15 years. Got a little bit involved. My dad was very involved in community activities. Actually ran for council and got beat back in 1940. Mother was always very involved in the church, so they sort of inbred me a little bit, I guess, to get a little bit involved. The Elks used to run a program, which Dad was a member of, he saw the rule, and it was for triple kiddies. In those days, polio was pretty prevalent. In fact, at one point they thought I had polio. In fact, the ambulance was outside to take me to the hospital when they decided that it was some type of other, probably rheumatic fever, because I ended up with a damaged heart valve. But my sister and I used to go to the boardwalk and take the crippled kiddies. They bus them up there, and we'd walk the boardwalk in Point Pleasant, and it was a great thrill, really, to take care of the kids, and that was a little bit of community. And then, I don't know, I was 9 years old, I guess, when I was sick. I was sick for 9 weeks, but that's beside the point. I got in, the New York Giants were training at Lakewood, at Ocean County Park and Rockefeller State, and I pedaled my bike up there and started shagging some baseballs, and before you know it, Ernie Lombardi was the catcher. Called him a schnoz. He had a nose that was just tremendous. And he wanted me to be his personal bat boy. So before you know it, I got to know Carl Hubble, Mel Lott, and all the other Giants. And in fact, my parents and I, we went to dinner at Charlie Marion's restaurant, and as we walked up, my father said, "Look who's coming out of there, Johnny. You know those guys? That's Carl Hubble and Mel Lott."
Wow, what an experience.
Yeah. And as Carl Hubble walked by, he said, "Hi, Johnny." And my father almost passed out. He just couldn't believe it. And Carl Hubble was an old elk, and before you know it, they got chatting, and before you know it, Carl and my father would go down to the Elks Club after practice and have a few shooters, I guess, and drag along and put some nickels in the slot machine. But he became very good friends with my father, and the next season, he became a pretty much steady every Sunday morning. He'd be here at my house for breakfast. A couple of times he brought Mel Lott with him. So it was that was a great experience, no doubt about it. All the memorabilia, Mother tossed. So, I don't have anything to show for it. About $1 million worth of stuff I probably had. But other than that, we moved to, it's hard to move when you're 15 and you're going into your sophomore year. I don't, the fans here, it's nice to be able to finish. They let my sister finish high school. She was 3 years older. And after she finished, they wanted to move to Asbury because my father was a salesman for a Fisher Bacon company, and he had been since about 6 years at that time. And he's back and forth from Lakewood, and it was pretty tough. So we moved to Asbury. I said I fell into a shell because I really didn't know anybody, and it wasn't an easy time for.
So you were, what, about 15 years old?
I was 15. We moved on my 15th birthday, to be exact. And I gave up my trumpet, and I was good. I was playing first trumpet freshman year at Lakewood High School. We had a great band. But gave up everything. And then finally, I got to know a few people. My junior and senior year were great at Asbury Park High School. Graduated in '53. And during the time, though, I met a guy named Paul Edelson.
Okay.
And, nice guy. And remember, he and Margie would be walking down the aisle hand in hand, and with a couple little sticks. He's a kid. But Paul and Margie were always a great couple. And I don't know, after we settled in Asbury pretty good. I started with Rutgers and went through my freshman year at Rutgers. And that summer I had turned 18 and I was able to work in Fisher. Then I was working on the ovens and it's pretty hot in there. One morning the boss came in and my father and I would work with my father on Saturdays and holidays, and we go out in the truck, and a lot of times during the summertime before I was 18, I guess I actually just about ran his route. I'd run in, get the orders, and run out and visit restaurants.
In those days now, how big was that at all? How long did it take you to do a route?
Well, you'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you'd get home by 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was, But that morning, I was working. I went in a midnight shift, and about 4 o'clock, the boss came in, and I didn't know my father had passed out from an asthma attack, and he was going to be out for a while, and he had nobody to take his route, so I ended up taking his route out. I had a helper though, and so then because of that, I had to join the union. So I finished my freshman year at Rutgers, and almost finished with my sophomore year when they called me up and said I had union seniority, and they had to ask me first whether I wanted the route they were going to put on, and it included Fort Monmouth, and I had some pretty good client, and I could make a lot of money, no doubt about it. And so it was between Rutgers or go make money. So I went, and before you know it, I was a salesman for Fisher Baking Company for 13 years. And got involved in the union, was shop steward, did a little bit of union work and contracts. It was a good exposure. It was it was as good an education as I could get, probably. Between the streets of Asbury Park, a little fraternity life at Rutgers, and that, I don't think I could have a better education. I always looked for paper on the wall, but it never bothered me that I didn't have it.
Okay. Well, now, in high school, when did you meet Judy?
Well, I knew Judy from high school, and we go back to remember Harry's Inn. My father-in-law and mother-in-law decided they went out to dinner, and it was a Thanksgiving. And after Thanksgiving dinner at my house, I decided, look, I'm not going to sit around here. I'm going to go out to Harry's and have a little suds. And so I met Ralph Straight there, Mr. Big. Remember Mr. Big?
Right, from TV.
And so all of a sudden, this couple came in with their kids, and they had been out to dinner and just stopped for a drink before they went home. And Judy was little corner and glasses standing in the corner, and I said, geez, let me go over and say hello. So I went over and say hello. Before you know it, I got in a conversation with her father, and we had between her father and I, we had a better, I never even spoke to Judy, but before you know it, he says, I'll be glad to see you sometime. And so I dated Judy, and before you know it, whatever happens, happened.
Oh.
So we only went together probably 8 months before we got married.
Oh, good. Now, how did you get involved in community service? Because that's what you're.
Well, we lived in we moved to Ocean Township in 1962, and we had 3 children, Jody, Jill, and Johnny. And unfortunately, we lost Johnny. We have to be honest, we lost Johnny to alcohol. When he was at that time he was 50, but that's beside the point. But we moved to Ocean Township in '62, and I got a phone call from somebody in the Ocean Township JCs, and I think it was Ben Harvey. And I turned him down. I said, no, I didn't want to get involved yet. You know, let me just get my feet in the ground. But about 3 months later, I get a phone call from a guy named Paul Edelson. And he said, how would you like to join the Asbury Park JCs? And I said, yeah, you know, it sounds good to me. You know, still had a little bit of Asbury Park left in me. And slowly got involved in the Asbury Park JCs. And then Margie called Judy, and they had the JCS. Besides the JCs, the girls had the JCS. And Margie called Judy, and she became a JCette. My gosh, you know, Judy was had great imagination. There's a lot of stories I can give about Judy. But you know, we got involved, and before you know it, it was Asbury had the riots and everything, and we couldn't get anywhere as far as doing programs in Asbury Park. So I pretty much picked up and reformed the Ocean Township JCs. And the Ocean Township JCs, you know, a little bit of history. I mean, you know, we had some great people, you know, involved.
We did a lot of big projects too.
Yeah, well, I remember the Asbury Park JCs. We had the project of the Redstone missile, was it?
Right.
Redstone, they got stuck in the
Holland Tunnel.
The Holland Tunnel. They mounted it on the beach in Asbury Park, and it was quite a show. But the Ocean Township, we had a lot of good programs. One of the things that in getting membership, I was involved in getting the members and getting new members, and we picked up I think I picked up 52 in 1 year, and we had I was at the old Guatemala Gardens, and I looked out at the group. We had about 40 potentials, and I said, what do you want to do for anybody want to do something for Ocean Township? And Bob Cavallo said, yeah, I think we ought to do a drug abuse program. And that really expanded before you know it. And Bob called me up and he said, we're going to the high school library, and we had the Board of Education there and some council, and we got that program started. And before you know it, it just expanded, and a guy named John Neufeld, and you know, before you know it, you've got you know,
The whole program.
The whole, you know, it became, you know, it kept expanding. Before you know it, was handling marriage problems, it was handling this, and now you got community service out here.
Right.
The building out here is probably a good name for Bob.
Well, we have a huge community service in that building and the support. So.
But it's, Ocean Township was good. And then I was, as far as the JCs were concerned, you're only 21 to 36. So I had turned 36, and we gave a little plaque called the Exhausted Rooster. And at the Joe Palaia was the speaker at that night, and Joe came over after the meeting and said, "Would you like to be on the planning board?" And I said, "That sounds interesting." So I said yes. Before you know it, I got on the planning board, and I took to that like kid taking to candy. I mean, it was a great experience.
You were hooked.
Yeah, and then at the same time, we had a group in town. In 1953, they had an election to change the form of government into the Faulkner Act, which is a nonpartisan program. And I got pretty much involved. And in 1972, they asked me to be the chairman also. And so I took to the chairman of that and made sure that, that Joe and I would get together with the appointments, and don't anybody call themselves a Republican, or when anybody calls themselves a Democrat, because we're nonpartisan and we don't want you, no interaction. And we had some, great people from both sides. In fact, if you look at when I first was chairman, I think it was really, if you go deep into the individuals, it was 4-1 Republican. When I got out as chairman, it was 4-1 Democrat. So that's how nonpartisan we could get, And it was a great show, really. We did that for 13 years, I guess, before I got, in 1985, I just, I served 4 years in council. We had 8 or 9 meetings trying to find in 1975, actually we were trying to find a female to, get on council. We hadn't had one. And I knew of, there was a gal after 75, I guess, after a while we couldn't find anybody. Before you know, a guy named Norbert Belfer looked at me and he said, "You're it." And everybody went and stood up and said, "You are it." We had a committee of 7, 8, and they all pointed at me, so I ended up running in 1975. Joe Palaia, Phil Wetzel, Dick English, Stanley Benn, and myself. And those are great. Individual, to talk about me is one thing, but talk about some of the great people in Ocean Township. I mean, Joe Palaia was a thing. You can't, such an independent mind, but he wanted nothing but the best for Ocean Township, no doubt about it. And Phil Wetzel, we got very involved with Phil and the JCs. And in those days, Highway 35 was 3 lanes. A right lane, a left lane, and the suicide lane in the middle. You remember, it wasn't even paved. It was oil and stone, and it was totally different. And it needed work. And Phil was pretty much, he worked on that real hard. And then of course, Dickie English was with me, and and Dick was a great personality. Asbury Park boy. His dad was in council, so he had a little experience.
Right.
But I'll never forget, Dick later on became the mayor, and I think one of the great moves I've ever heard of. There was somebody wanted to put a methadone clinic in the shore area, and they picked Ocean Township. And I don't want to mention names of who did it, who started it, but and Dick English wasn't going to let it happen in Ocean Township. And he vowed, you bring it in here, and I know where they were going to park. Actually, right off Bound Road in Asbury Avenue. And Dick laid right down and says, you're going to have to run me over. The trailers turned around and went back to Trenton, wherever they came from, and that was Dick English. And then he wasn't afraid to pick up garbage when he went to the municipal garbage program. So I could talk about a lot of the individuals. Stanley was a different person, and I personally, if anybody wants to run for council and you go to pick an attorney to be there, don't do it. Too many conflicts for attorneys to be on council. That's all. But we had. We had a good time. And then later on, of course, Jimmy Garrity came on board. Phil retired, and Jimmy came on. Jimmy Garrity, good old hometown boy, born and raised Ocean Township. Granddaddy's a farmer. Daddy was, had the service station. Daddy lived to be. He could tell you all about Ocean Township. He lived just short of his 100th birthday, I guess. And then Saul Rubin. Stanley retired. We put Saul Rubin, nice, good guy. They put a picture of somebody did an artwork in the town hall, and they did a picture of Saul Rubin as a clown. And I said I wanted to take it down because Saul Rubin was not a clown. He was really a good council person. And so, but then in '79, I wanted out, and. Because I didn't want in to begin with, but I did it for 4 years. And I remember we ended up with putting John Villapiano on and Becky Riley. Becky Riley was the first councilwoman, I believe, in Ocean Township. And we had looked for a woman in '75 and couldn't find one, but Becky used to come to the meetings and she would raise her hand and speak, and it made a lot of sense. And I said, you can have my seat. So I don't need it, but I did want to go on the sewage authority. I saw some problems in the sewage authority. So they appointed me in 1980 to the Sewage Authority, and I lasted till '85. Not too many people ever retired from the Sewage Authority, but I did for personal reasons. Didn't like what I was facing, to tell you the truth. But we straightened out from 80 to 85. We straightened it out pretty good, and then they wanted to bring Asbury Park into Ocean Township, and that all started while I was on council. Actually,
Now, when did that start?
Probably 1973 is when it really started.
And that's still going on?
Yeah, and it's still going on. The Sewage Authority came into a council meeting in '73 and said that we need a sign off to get Asbury Park to come over into Ocean Township. And Dennis Crawford and I looked at each other and I said, "It ain't going to happen." And as much as I was an Asbury Park boy at one point, but it wasn't going to happen, and we've been fighting it ever since. I went and we had to expand, and while I was on the authority in '85, I ended up going to Trenton, and I took a newspaper heading that my cousin had helped me draw up. She worked for the Trentonian. She had a phony paper done. It said DEP pollutes Atlantic Ocean. I wish I still had it. I still have it somewhere. And they cringed, I guess, a little bit, because I was going to go after DEP instead of them coming after us. And before you know it, we got permission to expand without Asbury Park. And that's the way it is today. Now, now they're talking about, they think they can handle it. And I'm saying, if you ever had a hurricane that hit like it hit in Florida, this recent hurricane, you'd have Asbury Park sewage all over the township. And it's just not a gamble. I don't care how much money they think they can throw in for, because bring in Asbury Park. Asbury Park just wants that property to build another 16-story or 17-story condo complex or something.
Okay.
But that's it's part of history.
How about your latest projects in town? I know you're doing a number of things.
Well, you saw all the beat up of the police departments were taking. Everybody was, and I just got a little upset about it. And I went to Steve Peters, chief of police, and I had a little idea of a bumper sticker, and or magnets or however we want to do it. And he liked the idea, but we didn't know how to do it without, involving the police department. It had to be outside. So one of the police officers was a graphic designer, had been a graphic designer, Jeff Mullen, and he designed this magnet, which I had one sitting here. And I had it made. And I started with 500, and before you know it, I ended up with 1,000. Because right now, there's probably 5,000 magnets out there with cars.
So you funded the whole project?
I funded it. It was my pocket, but it's okay. It's a little something that Ocean Township gave me a lot. I want to give a little back. That's all.
It's very good, because wherever you go, you see them on cars.
Yeah. Well, I get upset when I go down to the library and I don't see one on some of the cars. I want to stick it on myself.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I know that over your life, you've met a lot of interesting people. Tell us some of those.
Oh, goodness gracious, yeah. Well, where to start? I was about 13 years old in Lakewood. I had a rowboat, and I had it in Ocean County Park. And Aubrey Clayton was a good friend, a personal friend of my father's, and he let me put the boat in Ocean County Park. And I used to row kids. I used to row around the island, 2 islands. And Walter Edge was a retired governor of New Jersey, and he was actually a 2-time governor, I guess, from back in 17 and then in 40s. And he was sitting with my father through the Elks Club. I guess they had an outing. And he printed a sign, and he did it himself, and he says, twice around the islands, 10 cents. Right? And he hung it up. Before you know it, it was a 3-day weekend, a 4th of July weekend, 3-day holiday weekend, and I came home with $48. That was a lot of rowing.
10 cents a ride.
10 cents a ride. That's a lot of rowing.
Okay.
But it was very shallow, and it wasn't like even if you tipped it over, I think any 5-year-old could stand it really.
Yeah.
But it's beside. And then I hit a rock. Somebody threw a rock in there. I hit a rock and busted the bow of the boat, so I was out of business. And, but I still remember that. I threw $48 on the dining room table. My father went upstairs and put down his check for $28 a week. And that's it. But I ended up with the nicest bicycle you ever saw in your life.
Okay.
That was And then later I got to know. Oh, boy, where Ray Bateman was running in the primaries, and in debate I ended up shaking hands with Brendan Byrne, who beat him. Ray was a JC from Somerset, and 7 of us got together and decided that Ray Bateman was going to be the governor. And Monmouth County Republicans had already endorsed Tom Kane, but we ended up beating Tom Kane in Monmouth County. The 7 of us worked our tails off and through different JC chapters, actually. And Ray ran, and so during that time he was also, then Tom Kane was involved. He was also running, so I ended up meeting Tom Kane at that time. Who else? Chris Christie I sat with at a basketball game at Rutgers. They needed a seat, and I had 2 empty seats sitting next to me at the game. I looked up, and there's this suit standing there with this ear thing. I said, "What are you looking?" He said, "We're trying to find a seat for the governor." I said, "Stick him over here." So he sat with me, and we talked about the 100 people that he put in jail, but I talked mostly about the 4 that he didn't get. A couple of them which I knew. And,
He must have been impressed with that.
yeah. But then, I got guys, Jim Florio. When I involved in the JCs, after you're 36, you get out, and you've been involved enough. They have what they call a senatorship.
Okay.
And so they gave me the senatorship down in South Jersey. I forget what the name of the place was, but Jim Florio was receiving a JC award for one of the 5 outstanding young men in New Jersey. And we stood on the podium together. I'll never forget Jim with his not long enough tuxedo pants, white socks, and brown shoes. I said, that didn't go over too good. But met McGovern at Ocean at Asbury Park Boardwalk, and I don't know who else. I messed up. I had a list here. I can't remember everybody.
Well, that's good.
But
Well,
to go back to JCs also though. We got so involved. I mean, you had a little background with the JCs that maybe I hope it influenced your life a little bit. I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And but we ended up with guys like Jim Jeffries. Became a member of the Board of Education. Jim became state president of the JCs.
Mhm.
And I can go into how I ended up being a state farm agent too with Jim. I'll give you that story. But we had Nick Donofrio became on the Board of Ed. I think he became also chairman of the board,
Right.
President of the board. I don't know, Kay Janarone with the JCETs. She got very involved, and she's still in the planning board and deal. A guy named Bob Peters who worked with us in Ocean Township, and then he moved to Wall Township and called me up and he said, then I guess I was on council at the time. He said, they asked him to become a councilman of Wall Township. I said, well, take it, no problem. He says, well, what's it like? He said, we talked about a half hour or so about things. before you know it, Bob ended up, and after 4 years or so, he became mayor of Ocean Township. You know, Frank McDonough probably is one of the guys who lives on Oakhurst with Lakewood.
He's an ogre.
He's an Oakhurst. And he became state president of the JCs also. He's a retired Marine major. Got very involved and became an attorney on the planning board.
Mm-hmm.
Got very involved in the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office. He ended up in the Whitman administration, was very influential in the Ellis Island turning back to New Jersey. He did a whole program. He was worked in the Whitman. He was director of Marine and something.
Right.
You know, but really a great guy. You know, we had a lot of good guys. You know, Dave Wyckoff was on one of the boards. I think Eddie Denoble was on one of the boards.
Board of Education.
Board of Ed. You know, and we were all good. You know, had some. The JCs had a little bit of influence in some of these programs.
Yeah. Well, you did a lot with the JCs, and you became a JC senator, and
Yeah, well, I had the opportunity, and it was sort of, you know, I was at, after a JC meeting, we were at Christie's restaurant, and the bartender was selling tickets for the Olympics. It was $10. And I was talking to a guy named Mike Del Pazzo at the time, and I heard in the background, you know, I don't want one of those things. It was Tom Janneron, so he turned it down, and I said, "What is it?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll take one." I didn't realize it was $10 though, and I had $14 in my pocket. And I just bought this guy a drink. So I was in trouble, you know. So ended up, I took the ticket, and we were at a planning board meeting, and before the meeting, we all got together in a conference room, and all of a sudden Judy comes walking in, and she says, "Did you take a ticket on the Olympics?" And Joe had taken one, Sammy Patterson had taken one, somebody else had taken one, and they all said yes. And I said, "Well, why is Judy saying, well, wait a second, I took one too." Said, "Well, you won." And they won, who, and everybody, we couldn't figure out who won. So we won, and we ended up in Munich, Germany in '72. You know, the unfortunate part was that the Israeli problem that we had over there. But it was a great 28 days over in Germany. But at the same time, the JC Senate was having their international conference and convention, and so I heard about it, and I went in, and I was the only guy from the United States. So I ended up being introduced as representing the United States, John Huss. And I said, "That sounds good." And we changed a lot. We had to exchange our pins from different countries. And I just happened to open this up, and this was from the Republic of China that he had given me. And they took Judy, and Chinese, they had the umbrella dancing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They had Judy up there too, and it was a
what an experience!
it was a great experience. Met a guy from New Zealand. We became very close. Communicated a little bit. He has since passed away. But we had a lot of great times through the JCs. You know.
Very good.
Oh, how did I become a State Farm agent?
That's very important.
Right? I had 33 years with State Farm. We had JCs.
Right.
Had the boss's night. And Jim Jeffries had invited one of the district managers. And Dick Stout at that time was the acting governor for that night. And he was still able to be the guest speaker at our boss's night. So Jim brings a guy named Will Saylor, this agency director. And he and I start chatting, and Dick Stout comes over and talks. chat. Dick wanted to hang around. Dick was a great guy. Dick's dad was one of the great guys. I mean, a real guy, you know. And so we chatted, and I just Russ says, "You're the acting governor." So, before you know it, he said, "I get a phone call the next day from this guy, Russ Aylward." And I said, "You know, I had a wonderful night last night. Jim gave me your phone number, and I wanted to call you. And I was wondering, would you be interested in becoming a state farm agent?" Now, Fisher Bacon Company closed in 1966, and I was doing all kinds of different things. I was offered different things with the union, and I turned everything down. I didn't want to get involved anymore than I was. And before you know it, so in '68, I'm getting this offer, and I said yes. He said, so we have to do it quick. We had to, I had to go to school and get licensed and the whole kit and caboodle. But it ended up, I got the appointment, and they were only doing 3 appointments in the state. And I got one of the appointments, and the rest was history. 33 years later, made a good buck. Can't deny it. Made a nice dollar. The average loss of business from most insurance companies and insurance agents would be somewhere between 16, 18, and 20% a year. I never lost more than 2%, and that includes, even people moving out. I just wanted to take care of the people. That's all. Always communicated. So I was a good agent, I have to say.
It's amazing how sometimes you end up in different places.
Well, I probably would have stayed on, but again, back to when I was 9 and I had that rheumatic. They don't know what I had as far as the fever was concerned, but I assume it was rheumatic fever because the heart valve damage, and it took 60 years for them to find out how to fix the damn thing. Otherwise, I turned around and I had a great conversation with some of the people I met. I was out in California, and my grandson was a Marine, and he had a little disability problem, and he got injured, and they were trying to riff him out, I guess, and I ended up meeting a 2-star general, Joe Monaco, and General Joseph Monaco, and just called me Joe. Mm-hmm. And he was just the nicest guy, Marine Corps general. And we had and the following year I ended up meeting him again, and he just came over to me and says, "John," and he says, and there was 16 men at that meeting. There were 14 lieutenant colonels, 1 general, and 1 4F.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I was there. It didn't stop me. I was able to sneak on the football team, and when I was in 8th grade, and a freshman year in Lakewood, without getting a physical. Somehow I maneuvered around because I never felt weak or anything like that. But it kept me out of anything else. It ripped me out of the Air Force Reserve. It kept me in the ROTC with no problem. But I lost, I couldn't, anything. Anytime I had to take a physical, it was tough.
All right, very good. John, I want to thank you for sitting down and doing this.
Well, if let me just continue one more thing.
Okay.
And that's Paul and Margie in this place. This, I've been involved in a lot of nice things. This museum is probably one of the greatest that you'll ever find. The dedication of these 20 board members around is just phenomenal. Doc Richmond, what you did, and it all started with a gal named Margie, and that's, the way I read it, that's where it started. And Margie and Kay, I guess, at the time. Kay Zimmerman, was it?
Yes, Kay Zimmer.
Yeah. But
the Old Historic Society.
Yeah. And it just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And then, you've taken over, and Margie involved, and I just, and it's just, if you haven't been to this museum, you know, you better get here quick and see also the tower and the cow barn and
Okay.
all the different programs. But I have to, you know, if anything, I want to congratulate you. And I'd best sit here and interview you and tell you what you've done over the years, because you've done a heck of a lot more than I have, you know.
Well, thank you for the, thank you for the, and also you don't have to hurry to get to the museum because we're going to be open for a long time. And there are a lot of people, you know, Ted and Peggy Dellinger. Peggy does all the stuff in here, but this is just a commercial for the great job I've done.
No, it's a great program.
Okay.
Maybe we skipped a few things in notes, but I don't.
Well,
you're doing good.
Thanks for doing it. Okay.
Appreciate it.